Welcome to Between the Brows podcast, presented by Buckventures Outdoors, where the guys talk about hunting, God, and everything in between. We've got a great show for you today, so sit back, enjoy, and let's get right into it.
Hi guys, Jeff Danker here, Tony Smotherman.
What's going on, guys?
We just come off the Buckventures Summit.
Yes, we did.
And more exciting.
It still gives me chills just thinking about how amazing it was.
It was really good. It was, gosh, I keep saying, Tony, it just, it's the best one yet. And I'm not blowing sunshine. I think it was the best one yet. I think there was more people. I think it went smooth.
Well, I concur. I've had the opportunity through the CVA brand to be there for the last several years, and I've said this before to folks that have been there, when you allow me 37 seconds on stage, that the first one I went to was so amazing that I hated to leave early, but I had already planned to leave early, and the whole time that I was driving home after that event, I was kicking myself in the tail for leaving so early. So it was an amazing event, that first one was, but they have been so much better across the time of the last couple of years, and to see so many people coming out to be involved in it. What really impresses me about the whole event is, even though that there's so many walks of life from different regions of the United States that show up there in Oklahoma, but when we're there, even though that I talk like a redneck and there's some guys there from New York that speak different language than I do, we're all the same person right there. Oh, yeah. That's what amazes me.
Well, and it's like, I think even you said, or somebody said, I think, even with the television and all that, and there's some competition. But at the end of the day, I think everybody's on the same page.
Oh, for sure, no doubt. And yeah, everybody's on the same page. And of course, obviously, everybody's after the wars to be the best solo filmed and so on and so forth. But, I don't think that really gets in people's way and messes up their vision of the real reason that they come to this event.
Well, and the other, and you could probably say this is, I think that was show 7 or 1-7, and I think we've strengthened, obviously I think we got more people, but I think the big thing that's growing is those, the really more talent, God-given talent in it. Probably when you're out there shooting guns, you get, obviously we got Heath Rayfield, you got all these guys that are going to bring it from every level, no Gandy, and even really, you start looking at Cole Cannon, Chancey.
Oh my gosh.
They all came from this.
Yep.
And so, and again, I give it to the good Lord as, I had a little vision and it just took off, and now they don't even let me run it.
Maybe by design.
Yeah, that's right.
Just saying.
Yeah.
No, it really has been amazing, and to see everybody there, and so we're 3 days removed or 4 days removed here at this point as we're filming this here now, and I am so impressed that there's been so many people that have reached out to me through direct messaging or text messages or Instagram or all the ways that we communicate today. Sure. Just saying, oh my gosh, what an amazing time it was. And I'm like, my gosh, these folks are passionate about being here.
Well, that, and Tony, and you're good, we're going to get into the nuts and bolts here in a second, but it's a good point is, heck, when I first started, and that's where we're going to go back, guys, to go back to the beginning here a little bit, but when I first started, it was all about a 30-second commercial. And now, even dealing as I deal with CVA, and that's not what it's about. It's about this whole deal, and that's, to me, we got 2 national shows, we got this, we got that, but then you add the pro staff in there, and that very thing that you just said, when we leave an event like that, and all of a sudden the sponsor, the partner, is blew up with positive messages and all that.
That's insane.
And that adds to, I think that is why we're relevant still today, or one of the big things.
Oh, for sure. So like if we were just dealing with you and Daniel.
I forgot his name at the meeting too.
Yeah, my gosh. Sorry about that, Daniel. We appreciate you very much, all your hard work. But originally it was just you two guys, and you guys were arms of our brand, for the CVA brand, and now at the end of the day we have 350 arms of our brand through Buckventures and Woodsman, for these people all across the country and all walks of life. So yes, it is definitely a much different program that you guys put into play versus other television shows that we have the opportunity to work with.
Well, and if you're sitting there watching us and wondering what we're talking about, you would have anybody watching could have it's to you. Next year in April, it will happen again. So if that's something that piques your interest, reach out to us or whatever. But really the big thing that I'm sure Tony's had this happen. But I want to go way back in the day with Tony. I mean, I'm fixing to ask Tony some questions I really don't know the answers to.
Hey,
so
just be aware. There's gray hair right here, and I may not know that either because I can't remember that far back.
Yeah. Well, it's been a long time, and Tony. So my first question, I mean, if you don't know who Tony Smotherman is, Tony Smotherman is right now. You know, he's the face of CVA, in my opinion. He is who we deal with CVA. And you know, on the muzzleloader side, you've always got, you know, great knowledge there, but you got great knowledge in the rifle side, and now the shotgun with the 410. So just going back, stepping way back, Tony, I don't know if I've ever asked you this question. What year or you know, even as a child, what was the drive here? I mean, was it sports? Did you do that, or was it just always hunting?
Well, it sure wasn't sports because I can barely play the doggone radio, to be honest with you. So I can't play basketball, none of the other businesses everybody else does. And everybody's like, oh, you're 6 foot 2 foot tall, you know, or 6 foot 2 inches tall. Everybody thinks, oh, you played sports. Oh, my gosh, no, I did not. You know, so like a lot of folks that's involved in Buckventures and folks that are watching this here right now, I did have a background in the outdoors. My dad was a big coon hunter, which today that's not much of a thing anymore, but back in the day, that's what my dad loved to do. And I mean, he was the Jeff Danker of coon hunting back in the day. He traveled all over the world doing competition coon hunts. So I coon hunted from 4 years old till about 12 or 13 years old, and that was my passion. Just like you guys, if you're guys or young men that's watching this, you know, your dad is the role model. That's the thing. You know, you're behind him no matter what's going on, no matter what his decisions are. The dad is the boss, and you're staying with him. So every move my dad made, that's what I made. If he stopped, you had to dig me out of his butt because I was on him. I was on his heels every step of the way. But you know, as we grow up from young men to adults, you know, puberty happens, things change, your vision changes, and unfortunately about that time when I was going through that time in my life, going from 12, 13, 14 years old, becoming a teenager, my dad decided not to be around anymore. So very unfortunate spot for a young man to be in. But you know, if you look back now, 40 years later, actually about 35 years later, you know, at that time when I was in that well, my dad split out, and I wasn't able to go coon hunting because my mom wouldn't let me go by myself. And of course, we did grow up on a family farm, so it was a good blessing. So I still get to partake per se in the outdoors, but I had to do it on my own because my dad wasn't around. So that was a very tough time.
You had to grow up right there.
Oh my gosh, you know, and things, you know, you start going different directions, and your mind starts doing things. You get hanging around the wrong people, you start doing the wrong things, and before you know it, your life's a wreck. And time I was 16 years old, I think at that time, I would consider myself, looking back today, a full-blown alcoholic. And if it wasn't a party every night and we were throwing up somewhere other than somebody's bathroom, it wasn't a good evening. I didn't make it to where I needed to be. But thankfully, and I say this to say, there's a plan that has me and Jeff together today, you guys watching this, us being here talking, there was a plan at that time. But at that time, you didn't understand it because life was a wreck and your dad was gone, and man, it was party and drink and party and drink, and school was an afterthought, and I made it to school because that's what I had to do. But was I in school? Yes. Was I at school?
Right.
Not so much.
Gotcha.
But I had a young man, I'm from Nashville, Tennessee, and back in the day, FFA, or Future Farmers of America, was a big thing. And because I grew up on a family farm, even though I didn't have no guidance from my fatherly figure at that time, FFA was still a part of me because I was so country boy kind of thing. But I had one kid that in particular, again, was put in my life for a reason. And he asked me one day, he goes, "Hey man, you ever shot a bow?" I'm like, "Nah, I never shot a bow." I said, "Ain't hardly no deer around here," and I grew up as a coon hunter, so archery hunting wasn't a thing. He said, "Well, why don't you come out and I'll teach you how to shoot a bow?" I'm like, "Well, you know, I could do that."
Sounds kind of cool.
It sounds cool, you know, and of course I'm mechanical minded, so being an archer, you know, it's a lot of mechanics to it, in front of centers and arrow lengths and spine and you know, all that kind of stuff. So I was like, well, it sounds pretty interesting. So I kind of dug into that, and it captivated my life. I'm talking about
Did not know that.
Like captivated me to the point where, which is weird because I work in the firearms industry now.
Sure.
But it captivated me to the point where that being an archer and understanding whitetail deer hunting, which this kid was a big deer hunter because his dad was. So he basically taught me how to become an archer and how to become a deer hunter And I say that loosely because obviously looking back now, we didn't know absolutely nothing, especially when I'm sitting to a guy like this here. We didn't know nothing. So it captivated me to the point where within about a year or so, my full focus in life shifted from the next barley pop or beer that I could get my hands on, or the next keg party. That was a big thing back in the day. We had keg parties on every farm we could go to. So that like totally went away because it kept me out too late at night. And I couldn't get up in the morning and try to go bow hunt a deer and beat him on his home turf. So it become a competitive thing, and I'm a little bit competitive, just not in sports. But it become a competition thing for me to where that I could learn how to be a bow hunter, learn the mechanics of archery, and then go beat a deer on his own turf in his bedroom.
Absolutely,
so it captivated me so much that it basically pushed all that bad stuff out of the way and got me away from those people that were causing those negative impacts in my life. So it was a big shift. And I didn't realize that shift, to be honest with you, till maybe I was 20, or maybe 19, just out of high school. I was full focused on archery and hunting whitetail, but I didn't realize because I was in the well, but it was a huge shift in my life. And I was dating a young lady, and she was a big deer hunter. We had a lot of common ground, but she, I wasn't so much in church at that time, or even,
God wasn't a part of your life?
Not so much. I mean, I had been saved as a young man because I did go to a Christian school for like the first 9 years of school. So I understood that I had been saved, understood where I was going when I passed away, but it was way back here in the back. So he was a part of my life, but not a part of my life. So I was going to church with this gal, and she had the pastor of the church that she went to was a big turkey hunter. And that's what we're doing here now in Kansas, turkey hunting. He was a big turkey hunter, and I felt a little bit of, a camaraderie or kinship with him because we could talk the same language. And I know he was a big pastor, and I was a 19-year-old dude, so there was a big gap of age and superiority, in my opinion. But we could talk about turkey hunting, just like what we talked about Buckventures. We were two different human beings, but when we talked hunting, we were the same person. And I asked him one day. I said, this gentleman's name was Larry. I said, Larry, I said, I gotta tell you, I gotta be honest with you here. I've been in a lot of trouble and a lot of alcohol abuse over the years, but I said deer hunting has kind of captivated me, and now turkeys has become a thing in my area, and I'm more interested in that too. I said, my biggest question for you is that, I feel, and this sounds very weird, and please don't take this the wrong way. I said, Larry, you're a pastor of a church. I said, I never knew anybody that when they were in school, they said they wanted to be a pastor of a church. They wanted to be a doctor or a lawyer or, all that kind of stuff, the common fireman, police officer stuff. And he goes, well, he said, I didn't plan on being a pastor of a church either.
I've heard that mainly every time someone says that.
Yeah, he said, I just felt I had a calling that's what I'm supposed to do. And I'm like, man, I said, Larry, I got to tell you. I said, I've been through some tough times, and I am 19, 20 years old now, and I look back and I said, I think the only reason that I'm here today to have this conversation with you in particular today, and today at that time I was having a conversation with Mr. Larry, I said, I think the outdoors saved my life. I said, because I was in some bad stuff for several years because of lack of guidance and the wrong people in my life. I said, I found archery hunting and I found deer hunting, and I said, my life has shifted. I said, so I think maybe that I have a calling that I should try to give back to the outdoors, and I want to be, at that time, I said, I want to be a professional outdoorsman, which I said,
you're 19, 20 years old right
I'm 19 or 20 years old, and I said, Larry, I don't think that's a thing. I said, Larry, I don't think that's a thing. I said, but I know the outdoors saved me and got me out of those issues and got me home and kept me safe, per se.
But to clarify that, just for the viewer, just like when you say the outdoors saved you, I mean, we got to go deeper in that, right?
Sure.
God uses the outdoors. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
It's God. He is over everything. And so exactly what he's saying, I think God uses all kinds of stuff, but continue on. But that, you know what I'm saying? I mean, it's the outdoors.
Oh, it is much deeper, yes, but I just saw it as at a very shallow depth of seeing the outdoors that saved me. And he goes, well, Tony, I don't know if a professional outdoorsman is a thing or not. He said, but if you think that's what you're supposed to do, go do it.
Sure.
I'm like, well, I mean, is there like a book I can read on this? I ain't real smart.
You got one, let me know.
I ain't real smart. I said, the only thing I can figure, Larry, is I need to start becoming an outdoor writer, and I can.
Is that when Traveling Hunter was born?
Not yet.
Okay.
So he goes, well, why don't you start writing hunting articles? I said, well, Larry, I said, I have a hard time spelling my own name. I said, and when I was in high school, I said, remember we talked about this party in past I had. I said, I was present in class, but I wasn't there, bro. And I said, English was my worst subject in school. Barely got out of high school because that subject plagued me so bad. And he goes, well, look, bro. He said, the only limits we have in our lives are ones we put on ourselves. Right. If you want to do something bad enough, you'll figure it out. So what I started doing, before I started in the hunting industry per se, I started reading every hunting magazine that I could get my hands on. Number one, to educate myself from guys like Greg Miller. Remember Greg back in the day?
Yeah. Man. I got all his books.
Yeah, man, I read all of his books, all of his magazine articles. I read North American Whitetail from cover to back to front, then jumped in the middle, then Buckmasters and Deer and Deer Hunting and all these publications. And it wasn't so much to educate myself on deer hunting, which I was inadvertently educating myself on. But I learned how to write by reading these dudes.
Yeah.
And I figured out my own path per se through the writing side of things. So this obviously dates us very bad and obviously explains the gray hair on all of us here. But back in that day, to work with an outdoor publication, I had to handwrite submissions.
They don't get that, do they?
Snail mail that son of a gun with a stamp and hope it made it to the editor.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it wouldn't because, I mean, the post office was better back in the day, but a lot of times it would just get clogged down in the process to get to that editor, and it would get hung up in with the secretary or whatever. So it was like a relentless goal to send queries, we called them, back in the day, to every outdoor magazine in the world and explain to them who I was and what I wanted to write about, and here's some topics that I wanted to write about and things that I felt I was smart enough in to write something legitimate. So that's what I did and started becoming an outdoor writer that way. And I think when I was 21, there was a gentleman come to me and goes, hey, I understand that you're really involved in outdoors in your community, and I want to start an outdoor magazine in Tennessee because we didn't have one, kind of a local publication that most states have now. And he said, I'd like for you to write in it. I'm like, oh my goodness, this could be my ticket.
So this is probably the 90s?
Oh, this was probably 93.
Okay.
93, I would imagine. Yeah, 100% it was 93.
Yeah.
So I graduated high school in 91. Again, that dates me terribly. So in 93, I started writing for this guy, and man, I would, like, literally my first articles that I wrote for probably 2 years was handwritten on a sheet of paper. This was a hunting article, and here was some Polaroids that I had gathered. Polaroids. Son. So then I would give them to him, and he'd have to send them off and get somebody to hand type them, click, 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 to get it into a piece that he could put into the publication. So it was a giant, long process. But I ended up becoming a columnist for him, so I wrote a column every month, and it was based around adventures that I would gather. It wasn't, obviously I couldn't be a Greg Miller and tell somebody how to deer hunt, but it was an adventure article to tell people how amazing the outdoors was and the stuff that I would experience upon hunting my family farm and then try to venture out to local WMAs. And eventually, traveling hunter kind of come into play because I realized that by reading North American Whitetail and Deer Hunting, the biggest articles that were read were ones about big bucks. Obviously, you know this world.
Right.
So I had a job that I worked 6 months a year. I worked 6 months hard in the summertime cutting grass, and then in the wintertime I took 5 months off and traveled. And I lived in the back of a Toyota pickup truck that was before Tacomas was even a thing. It was just a Toyota pickup truck. I had a topper on it and a bed liner in it, and I slept in the back of it, and I would travel from public ground to public ground through Indiana, Ohio, Illinois, Iowa, Kansas.
Chasing these adventures.
So you could
write about them.
So I'd have material to go back that somebody would even pay attention to. So I lived in my truck for 5 months a year, and I would come back in from these trips, obviously depending on tags I drew, which led me to get me where I'm at today. But I had to utilize these states for material so I could write articles and tell everybody how cool the outdoors is and what an amazing experience I was having in all these different states, kind of thing. Then I could start writing about that, and that gave me my material. But also was playing a hand in getting me where I'm at today in the firearms industry. So those states that I just mentioned, you can't shoot or couldn't shoot centerfire rifles back in the day. It had to be shotgun or muzzleloader only.
Gotcha.
So I picked up a muzzleloader so that I could travel and hunt these states to gather data and material and photos so I could go back and write articles to tell people how cool the outdoors was. And basically my thought was is if I can infect them with the what's the word I'm looking for? Not an infection per se like the flu or the COVID we just come off of, but sort of in that same way. If I could infect them and they could see and understand the fun that I was having in the outdoors, it may also change somebody else's life and get them out of a spot like I was in when I was in high school.
Well, so all this is taking place. You've lost your dad. You've got into, like so many of us have, you're chasing girls, you're partying, you're this or that, and all of a sudden God used the outdoors. And so now we're up to the deal of probably two, now you're flipping the television on. And these are the 90s right here where you got the Buckmasters, the real tree, and all of a sudden TNN probably.
TNN was the first thing, and to supersede TNN just a touch was everybody that did hunting videos back in the day, the Roger Raglins, the Dan Fitzgeralds of the world, they put these the VHS tapes out, which you probably don't know what that is, but VHS tapes is this great big thing, had film on it, and I'd go rent them at the local gas station. And that's how I would educate myself, and then of course obviously with the travels and things like that.
Rewind them before you brought them back.
Oh my gosh! Oh yeah, I had to rewind a song gun. They charge you if you didn't. Scoundrels! My gosh! So that was kind of the big push, And at that time too, I was going to every hunting show that I physically could drive to on the weekends, so I could go to seminars. Remember when seminars were a thing?
Yeah. I remember seeing Stan Potts, and I was just like, give it to me.
Yes.
And then he'd tell about a hunt, and then you'd go, like I said, buy that VHS.
Yes, man.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what pulled me in, was now I'm like going to these different hunting shows and getting, seminars from, Stan Potts, the Night and Hale back in the days. I remember specifically a Harold Knight one, and not enough, we're friends now, but I went to him to learn. But in doing that, I would meet different people at these trade shows and kind of create a rapport with them going, oh, we saw you at the last one. Yeah, I'm just here to educate myself, and understand. And that's how I got into legitimately got into the hunting industry. Was I was doing these trade shows, and I ran across the Night Muzzleloaders booth multiple times at different trade shows. And I remember, and of course, again, I'm at this time maybe 21 or 22, and of course poor as a snake and barely could afford gas to get to these places. But when I did get there, I couldn't afford to buy a cold drink. So it kind of tells you how broke we were back in the day. And maybe it's still not too far from that actually right now. I remember going by the night rifle booth at the Buckmasters Expo in Montgomery, Alabama, and there was a gal there named Michelle Bartimus. Which me and Michelle are really close friends now and have been for a long time.
I've seen her shoot a bunch of turkeys.
Oh my gosh, she's a machine. But I went into that night rifle booth and I said, hey, I just want to let you know I have one of your muzzleloaders. And I said, my gosh, is it absolutely amazing. And she goes, oh, okay. And so she puts on the salesman cap, switches gears. She goes, wow, we got these new ones. I'm like, oh, no, ma'am. I said, just to be clear, I just want to tell you I have one, and it's awesome, and I use it a whole bunch. I said, but I can't afford another one. One's all I can swing. She goes, okay, all right, no problem. So anyways, I left. I just cut her off abruptly and was maybe a little bit stronger than I should have been. I can't believe she even talked to me after that. But I left, and I come back on Sunday, which is the close of most trade shows, and I would go through and pick up all my hunting products for the year. So I'd go through and gather all my cover scents. That was for centaways and all that stuff. Gather all my cover scents and all this kind of stuff, a few extra tree strands, and I'd split. Well, I walked back by the night booth, and Michelle goes, hey, didn't I talk to you yesterday? I'm like, yes, ma'am, I did. I said I was the guy that had one muzzleloader and couldn't afford another one. She goes, well, I was at this booth up here, and they had, your picture was on this booth with a few photos that you had. I said, well, yes, ma'am. I said, I'm, again, poor as a snake and barely could pay attention. I said, but this scent company from Bessemer, Alabama, they told me if I would shoot a big deer with their product and send them a photo back, they'd send me a free bottle. I'm like, all you want's a photo and you send me an $8 bottle of cover scent? I'm your man.
Yeah, so y'all see how we started.
It's a struggle bus, boy. Struggle bus. So I'm like, deal. Boom. So I hit 5 or 6 states that fall, sent them a whole thing in the mail in a manila envelope with a stamp on it, sent it to them. They kept all the photos, sent me 3 or 4 bottles of scents. And at that time, I thought I was like the new Buckmaster at that time.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, I'm the deal. A lottery, man. So she walked by, and these folks had this little, almost like a poster board with all these Polaroids that I had sent them. And I'm on this little thing, and their conversation was, you put it up there with a tack. And their argument was like, anybody can kill a good deer once a year with our product, but this kid here killed 5 or 6 big deer last year Now, let me clarify what big deer is. It ain't Jeff Danker big deer.
Well, back then it was. Yeah, it was way different back then for all of us.
Way different. So, so it's like 130-inch deer or something like that. Basically, any good 8-pointer was good for me. So anyway, she goes, I walked by that booth and there's 4 or 5 photos of you up there, and they're saying that people can be lucky and do it once, but you do it 5 or 6 times last year and it was using their product. I'm like, yeah, they're kind of using me as a poster child. I said, but they give me 4 bottles of scent. That's $8 a bottle. Sure, I'm going to send this.
She say, here's your gun, go get it, boy.
So she said, well, what do you do? I said, well, ma'am, I'm trying like a devil to be an outdoor writer, but it's a struggle. I said, but I am writing for a local publication in my hometown, for our home state. It was in my hometown, but it's for the entire state. And I said, so I'm not really an outdoor writer, but I am doing some outdoor writing. She said, well, we have a program for that. I'm like, well, what kind of program do you have? She said, well, we have an outdoor writers program.
Say, sorry, I cut you off earlier.
That's what I'm thinking. I didn't want to admit that, but I'm like, what's this program? She said, well, outdoor writer program is we'll send you 2 free guns a year and all the bullets you can ever shoot and supplies that you need to continue doing what you're doing. She said, because I noticed in these photos, every gun in that photo was our muzzleloader. I said, well, yes, that's all I can afford. And I'm hunting in these states to gather information for my articles that require you to use a shotgun or muzzleloader. I said, so I have no choice but to use it. She goes, enough said, I'll send you a contract next week. I said, you better send it as quick as you get back to Iowa, baby.
So you can't even sleep now, probably.
Dude,
you're pumped.
I don't even remember driving home. I was so high on life.
And you think Wade probably called everybody on the way home. No, we didn't have cell phones.
We didn't have cell phones. I talked to myself the whole way back. So that's kind of how it all kind of progressed. And it was because I talked to Mr. Larry Swain, and he said, hey, if you think that's what you're called to do, you just figure out how to do it. And I did it by trial and error, because there was no handbooks or Cliff Note versions. There was no Instagram and YouTube and all that stuff. I just did it by reading articles, and I knew that was my only avenue. Now we have social media influencers that you can get on there and post all the time. That wasn't the thing back in the day. It just wasn't the thing. So you kind of had to push through it. But again, I go back to, if you want to do something bad enough in life, you'll figure out how to do it. And I just pushed my way through it. And eventually, because of working with night muzzleloaders on a very limited basis, I started. Michelle brought me to Centerville, Iowa, which was a home of night rifles, and took me on a turkey hunt as an outdoor rider. Again, I thought I made it. Yeah. I'm at the top of the heap.
I remember when they was doing that there.
Yeah, I mean, it was a thing. Rider hunts were the thing back in the day. And then when I hung out with her for 3 or 4 or 5 days there at the home of night muzzleloaders in Centerville, Iowa, maybe she saw something in me. I'm not sure what the deal was, but she goes, hey, she said, would you be interested in hosting some of these riders hunts? We don't have time in the office to take these dudes out, but you seem like you don't meet a stranger and you're very personable with me on this hunt. She said, why don't you start handling some of that stuff for us? I'm like, oh my gosh. Yeah, I'll be glad to take some dudes hunting for sure. So I started doing that for them, and that kind of progressed. And so I got to spend time with some amazing outdoor riders, and this is kind of where I'm headed with that. I got to spend some time with amazing outdoor riders, and the kind of the thing in life, we can be anything we want to be, but if you want to be an eagle in life, you hang around eagles. If you want to be a turkey in life, you hang out with turkeys. And I do like to shoot turkeys, but I don't want to be one of them.
Right.
So I tried to associate myself with good people, knowing that I was a product of my environment. And these outdoor riders I was taking hunting were what I wanted to be.
Sure.
So I'm like dug into the well of this goodness here. So I would take the information back from these guys that were writing for national publications, and I was a sponge on these hunts, obviously hearing these guys talk around camp. So I would take it back to Tennessee and to the guy who owned the publication called Tennessee Outdoor News at the time. I said, hey man, this guy and this guy, he said, they're doing this in their publication. It's rocking. How about we do this? And his exact words to me was, well, we're making money, and I don't really see the need to grow the publication, which I'm a very eager and hungry person to try to succeed in everything that I'm after. So I'm like, well, if we don't do this, we're not going to grow, and we're not going to affect more people. And we're not going to bring more people in the outdoors. We need to grow.
You couldn't deal with that.
I couldn't deal with it.
Yeah.
I said, so look here. This gentleman's name is Paul. I said, Paul, we need to have a conversation. I said, if you won't take these ideas that I'm gathering from all these outdoor riders and grow this operation, this magazine, so we have a bigger footprint, aka how you've grown Buckventures into now this big giant pro staff thing, where I need to expand this publication into something bigger. We need to connect with more people. And he goes, yeah, I'm not interested. And I said, all right, what's it going to take for you to get out of my way? He said, you think you want to run this? I said, no, I don't know. I don't want to run it. I want to own it. Get out of my way. I got bigger plans. And he goes, This is what I'll take, and I wrote him a check. So like immediately I owned Tennessee Outdoor News and jumped into something I had no idea what I was doing. No idea. But I knew, again, there's a will, there's a way, so I just figured it out. And I run that publication with my wife for 10 years, and when we decided to move on to the next step in life, or the next progression, was going into outdoor television, because I wanted a bigger platform than what my magazine was. So my magazine was limited to my state. I wanted a bigger platform, and the next progression was outdoor TV. But when we sold that publication, we had 41 outdoor writers working for us. We had graphic designers and folks that would handle like cartoon drawings. I mean, we had everything, editors, and we had the whole shoot match. So we really grew it up to something special. But I knew, again, that I wanted to do more, which got me into outdoor TV, which led me into hosting a television show. And at that time still, I was working even more in depth with Night Rifles. And I hosted their show on the Outdoor Channel for several seasons called Night Rifles Born to Hunt. And then underneath the Pradco family, which owned Night Rifles, I also started hosting their show called Moultrie's The Hit List, then Summit Tree Stands, Summit's High Places. But I was a bit limited to my creative control, because in essence, I was just a hired gun to come on and host shows for them and go and do my thing. So I started my own show, Traveling Hunter, and that name started because I needed an email back when I was 19 years old, and it was Traveling Hunter, because I traveled a lot. It was travelinghunter@AOL.com. That kind of dates it to how long ago that was. Some of you guys may not even know what AOL is. But I progressed into all this TV stuff, and then the Traveling Hunter was born, or Traveling Hunter Show was born, which I hosted for several years on the Sportsman's Channel. And that gave me full creative control to do what I wanted, travel what I wanted, and kind of dictate my message. And that message at the end of the day was not be a superstar like Jeff is, but to have a bigger platform to deliver my message of how amazing the outdoors is. I wanted to infect more people than my magazine would allow me to do, which was only statewide. And that next stepping platform was a national presence, which led me into outdoor TV.
Well, and I mean, I think it's like, as I think through it and listen to you, Tony, I mean, we scratched and clawed. I mean, I'm the same way. I mean, I remember getting, starting, I wanted something so bad, and that's how I was. I didn't know how to do nothing halfway. Whether I was roping or whatever it was, I went at it full-fledged. And I remember back on bankrupt, because I got into TV, and I remember Crimson Talon broadheads was one of my first. And they give me like 3-4 packages of broadheads. I mean, looking back on it, I'm like, what the heck? But again, even that day, I'm thinking, golly, they give me some broadheads. They think I'm something.
Yes, man.
And but leads me to this. Tony and I, being in the Pradco family, I remember going back and forth even to Fort Smith. I don't know if you ever went to that office with Pradco.
I did not, because that was more fishing lure oriented.
Right, but it was close, and anything I could do to talk to someone. But anyway, Night Rifles, what was his name? Gosh, you know it. Mike Matley.
Mike Matley.
Yeah, Mike Matley was running it, right?
Yeah, he was my boss.
Yeah, he gave me the opportunity, and they sponsored me with what I thought was a whole bunch of money back then. And anyway, Tony and I knew each other, but Tony, you came to my place. Was that the first time you came to my place? That's the first time we hunt together when you come shot the big deer?
Yeah, in Oklahoma.
Yeah, he's coming down, man. I'm like, I got around 4,000 or 5,000 acres leased there. And they come in, and we went to hunting, and basically with Tony, all you had to do is turn him loose, and he'd go find them. And basically you went over on the other side of the road, and y'all just went at it, and y'all were into some deer.
Oh my gosh.
And that big deer, I mean, and hopefully, guys, you're gonna, right now, in this YouTube deal that we're gonna run, you're gonna actually see that hunt, because I'm gonna pull that hunt, we're gonna show that hunt.
Hey, just so you know, we don't look the same, we look totally different.
But your excitement is something that I just loved. I mean, you were on our DVD series, and it was just unbelievable. Tony just, he shoots a deer, it's bedded. We weren't really supposed to do that back then. We ran it anyway.
Hey, I was a deer hunter, bro.
Right.
I'm on him whether he's standing or laying or kneeling or whatever. I'm shooting him.
but anyway, I just never forget that. You came out, and I think you came back another year and shot another one.
I did. And still to this day, probably 2 of my bigger bucks I've ever shot in my entire life was with you a long time ago.
That was a fun place. I'd love to go back to that place one day and just see all them footprints we put on it, and go around and see what it looks like now. Even because it wasn't that long ago. I mean, it was, but anyway.
Well, here's what's even crazy about that is when we left the Buckventures event, we drove through Winoka, Oklahoma, to get here today in Kansas, where we're at right now. And I was telling Rick, our brand ambassador for CVA that was with me there, helping us there at the Buckventures, and I was like, hey, you see those flat top buttes over there? I said, that is where I first started hunting and really become better friends, I guess, with Jeff, is on those buttes over there. And Winoka was where we based that was our hub right there.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, man, we were in that little cabin.
Yes, like literally 3 days ago from filming this here, I was reliving our past of our first for real get together per se.
Yeah, and I mean, I shot so many deer there, and I mean, you know, obviously it's great hunting. We're a little bit further out west now with our stuff, but the state of Oklahoma it's just been a great place for me, because one thing I love, Tony, about being there is I can be in the mountains in 7 hours. I can be in Iowa in 7 hours, Illinois in 7. I mean, you know, just, and then obviously we got good deer, but anyway, so at that time now, me and Tony are, you know, we're both now. I mean, I think that time we're off and running.
We're dug in the well.
Yeah, we're getting it pretty good, and we just keep rubbing up against each other. I mean, we're with Real Tree. And anyway, I think we could probably have a lot of conversations with people in the industry that we paralleled each other. And basically, I would just say it was ambition. It was a deal that we just had. We wanted it.
Wanted it so bad.
And
so bad.
Yeah.
You know, yours was maybe a little bit different. Mine was driven out of passion of hoping somebody else could be saved because it saved me, you know, kind of thing. But yeah, you know, at the end of the day, I'm not a smart guy whatsoever. You may be a PhD, super educated, but I was not born silver spoon. You know, you hear this stuff all the time, you know, oh, it must be nice to be Jeff Danker. Well, the thing that we were blessed with and what you guys need to dig deep into, and we didn't have things basically sucking our time away like social media does today. All we had to do in life was focus on the goal, and we was blessed with drive and ambition. So I talk about this quite often. I'm like, you know, I was blessed with nothing. We had nothing growing up, but I had a whole lot of drive and ambition, and that come from the man upstairs.
That's right. Well, and it's just, it is from him. I mean, I look back and see my path and be like, man, I didn't understand it then, but the Lord, and I made every mistake in the book, but you know, now where I'm at, obviously, if anybody's been around me or been around this event, I mean, we point to the Lord, and that's what I'm gonna finish my time out here pointing everything to the Lord. And again, as I stated in our meeting, as the good Lord says in His Word, it says, whatever you do, whether you eat or drink, you do for the glory of God. And I haven't always done that, but that is my heart, and even that was my message back then. I just messed up a lot of times. But anyway, we're here today, and that's what I would tell you guys is, you know, and the one thing we're leaving out a little bit, you're hearing it, but is the networking. And it is the guy believing in him, and Michelle Bartimus and Mike Matley, and I have the same deal along the way, but it was because we put ourselves out there and they seen the grit. And I'm like, Tony, I ain't that smart. I ain't. But I had enough grit in me.
Tell the truth.
Yeah, I am. You hear the way I talk. But I had enough grit in me. I had enough where I could look somebody in the eye and they could believe me, because it was coming straight from my heart. And so the networking of this is the other thing. I mean, we put ourselves out there, and to me that is, you know, we're in a different time, but it's still the same ingredients.
Oh, it's still the same ingredients. You just got to get off social media and don't be digging into that, and don't worry about what everybody else is doing. You need to worry about what you're going to do.
That's right, and then go do it.
And go do it, and don't let nothing stand in your way.
And so where we're at, and we're wrapping up, but CVA, you know, I remember, Tony, along this journey, I remember having the night rifle, but I remember I was down in Kansas City. I was on my way to Iowa, and we were in there, and a guy bought a CVA. And back then, if I remember right, it was a cheap gun. It was kind of known for that. It was a gun you could afford.
It was a different gun than it is today, for sure. And there was a shift in mid-2000s where they really ramped it up, and unfortunately, unfortunately, Night Rifles closed in 2009. Tony Knight, the originator, the inventor of the modern inline muzzleloader that we know today, was getting old, and he just didn't care to run it anymore, and health was bad, so sold it to Pradco, and then, you know, things went away for whatever business reason that is. But for me, I feel like it happened for a reason, because it has us here together today. But So I'm a person that loyalty means a lot. Jeff and I have been friends forever. We'll be friends forever.
That's right.
So, and I was loyal to where I'm trying to get is I was loyal to the night rifle brand, and Mike Matley come to me and goes, hey, I understand through some chatter behind closed doors that you're not privy to, night rifle's going to go away. We're going to close doors in 6 months. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? The world has come to a screeching halt. I was at the top in my mind. Yeah. I was at the top, and then all of a sudden my ship is sinking. And David Blanton from Realtree Outdoors, everybody knows David. Sure. David called me and goes, hey, I heard about night rifles closing. What are you going to do? My first reaction is, I have no idea.
Help.
He goes, well, we have a company that needs you, and we want you to go to work for them, and we'd like to make the conversation happen. I'm like,
that's so Realtree.
Yeah, and I'm like, I don't know about that. And I'm thinking the company they had in mind. I'm like, I don't really care much to go do business with those guys. And they say, no, not what you're thinking. We want you to go work for CVA. I'm like, bro, we have been competitors for 15 years. This may be tough for me to not talk night, but talk CVA, because we've been at each other's throat for a long time. We were the crosstown rivals. I said, but David, if you will initiate the phone call, and they do, in fact, call me, we'll talk about it.
Sure.
So they did. They called me. David did what he said he was going to do, which what you should as an adult do, what you say you're going to do. He did it. They called me, and we worked out an agreement on the phone very quickly, because I had 15 years or 14 years at that time specifically driven behind the muzzleloading industry, just because Michelle Bartimus gave me that opportunity at Buckventures at that time, so I'd stuck with night those years, and muzzleloading become my thing. So they called, and we worked out a deal, and I said, here's what I got to have to make this happen. I said, I appreciate that. I know night rifles going away. I said, but I need to ride night rifles until the boat is at the bottom of the ocean, until there's nothing left. I said, because the reason I'm here today, and the reason I was at that point in time back in 2009, the reason I made it there was because night rifles, they give me an opportunity. Somebody give me an opportunity. So they allowed me to run that out till night rifles was over with, which was July 29th of 2009. And it's weird how when you get old, you can remember all these dates. It's kind of weird, because I used to remember my dad doing it, and I'm like, how in the world? But anyways, so I remember that date. And so I started, CVA, we signed an agreement 6 months before night closed. They allowed me to continue my tenure there at Night Rifles. And the day it closed, I started at CVA the next morning. And it's the best thing ever. It's amazing. The people there are amazing. It was much bigger than the night rifle family per se, but it was still very family orientated. And then obviously you could see at that time.
What year was this?
2009.
2009. You've been there ever since.
It's 2024.
Yeah. I know.
Crazy to think about that.
Yeah. And CVA is, it's the best. I mean, there's not even, you can't even argue it. I mean, it's not because I wear the brand. Obviously, I believe in it, but I mean, you can be an outsider and you can just look and go, yeah, CVA is the biggest muzzleloader going. Yeah,
we're the world's largest muzzleloading manufacturer. We've been in business since 1971. And now, what I do with the brand, I'm on the PR.
I was born, so I know how long that is.
You got me licked on that one. I feel young right now. Yeah. So what I do here at the brand now is basically what I used to be. Growing up, per se. I handle all of our outdoor riders, magazine owners, editors, publishers, all of our TV show hosts, like working with you and everybody there through the BV and Woodsman side of things. So I get to work with everybody I used to be, which makes my position here at the brand very easy for me, almost like it's just second nature, because dealing with you guys and understanding what you need, I understand it very clearly because I was in that spot at one time. Well, for a long time I was in that spot. So it's an amazing thing that I get to do here at the brand, but one thing that I'm doing going forward is going to be a subject matter expert on muzzleloading and a product manager on muzzleloading and centerfire rifles for our brand, which basically I still get to do all of our media stuff and work with you guys, but also get to now start directing our path forward for new product development, which is amazing for me to be able to do that. So what I was going to say is that what we have today is absolutely stunning, and it's by far the best muzzleloaders and bolt action centerfire rifles and break opens on the market today. We're the #1 volumetric manufacturer and seller of all those pieces. But knowing what I know now behind the scenes working in product development, I also know the next 5 years of our pathway is stunning. Of what we're coming out with and what we already have prototypes of that I wish I could tell you, but the only way you get to know is hang around this man here or somebody that's in our group and understand the evolution of where we're headed. But it's stunning. You know, technology is an amazing thing, and I know muzzleloading has kind of been the same, and bolt action rifles has kind of been the same. The premise of manufacturing has been the same for quite a long time, but we have wireless mics that don't have wires on them anymore, and we're talking an amazing DSLR camera here with this crazy lens. Technology is awesome. Our phones that we touch now or use as computers, well, the technology has also touched the firearms manufacturing and muzzleloading manufacturing in general now. So the next 5 years are stunning for our future. So we're on top now.
And that's what you love.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, to see the
growing back to that magazine,
seeing this thing grow and where we're headed with it, and then just going to the Buckventures event and hearing all the amazing stories that people go, oh my gosh, man, this hunt, I had this muzzleloader that did this, and I was able to do this with that, and it is the most proudest thing in the world is if I own the brand.
Sure.
So,
Tony Smotherman right there. Like I said, there's a lot of things I didn't know. I mean, I didn't know about the coon hunting. You know, I don't know if you know, that's where I started at 4 years old, coon hunting, and just, you know, I just end it like this is, you know, we all have a platform. Even when Tony was talking when he was just young, he had a platform. And, you know, and that's what we all have. I mean, people come to me all the time, oh, you got this huge platform. Well, it's gotten bigger, obviously, but I think we all have a platform.
Sure we do.
And
it needs to be at all different levels. The platforms need to be at all different levels.
Yeah, and somebody's watching at all times.
Yeah. So just because your platform is not as big as Jeff's is or the little minuscule platform that I have, just because you don't have his platform doesn't mean you can't do big things, really.
Yeah, and there's no telling what God will do with that, you know, where it starts and how big he makes it or whatever.
Exactly, because if you think about it in kind of layman's terms or mechanically, if you go plant a garden, of course, obviously the end goal is to have a tomato, a big ripe red tomato or cucumber or whatever, but it doesn't start with a plant that's 6 feet tall and full of red ripe tomatoes. It starts with tilling the garden. Then it starts planting the seed. Then it continues to water the seed. Then the plant grows up, and you got to keep maintenance in that and pull the suckers off the tomato plant as it continues to grow. And it's a while down the road before you see red ripe tomatoes.
That's right.
So just think, just because you're starting somewhere now and you go, oh, I want to be Jeff. You can be, but you can't flip a switch. Right. It takes a lot of time, effort.
Well, we've even seen it in the Buckventures deal from Noel and Cole and Chancey and Whitney. I mean, it's you find a place to start, and that we do offer that. But Tony, before we get off here, tell them where they can find you social media wise. I know we've shed at that in a negative light, but we do use it for good.
We do use it for good. It's the platform.
So tell them where they can find you, the CVA, you yourself, and. And whoever wants to reach out to Tony, you can.
So it kind of, when you start something and it sticks to you like glue. That's the reason you don't want to do bad things, because that never gets away from you either. But I started with the AOL, a traveling hunter, at AOL.com, and that still has stuck with me today. So everything that I do on social media, no matter whether it's Facebook or Instagram or whatever these other platforms are, every one of them is Traveling Hunter. Of course, obviously you can tell by my slang, I am from the South, so it's country slang, so it's no G, it's Traveling Hunter. So just take the G off traveling, and you can find me anywhere on social media platforms. And of course, for us and our brand, the CVA brand, the flagship of what I do every day, CVA.com is the place to go to gather any information off products we manufacture, stuff that's in stock, stuff you can buy online, and then there's also a ton of links to YouTube videos. We just finished in the office there in Lawrenceville, Georgia, doing a lot of new updated muzzleloading videos, so you can go to our website and find videos on muzzleloading if you're just getting started. Obviously there's a lot involved in hunting with a muzzleloader, so you can go there and get nuggets of goodness that I just put together here a couple weeks ago about anything that you want to do in the muzzleloading world too.
There you go, guys. He's very knowledgeable. I mean, he's got tons out there, and I'll just tell you this. You holler at him, and I bet you anything he'll get back to you. So Tony Smotherman in a nutshell, and they just killed every turkey in Oklahoma and Kansas. We'll be showing you that soon. So we're going to eat some food. Tony, thanks so much.
Thank you, brother.
Appreciate you, brother.
Take care, guys.